Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.
We believe in this opportunity to work in Web3, and people coming in will be a massive shift.
There's a lot of opportunities that are for not, they're lost, and their people's skills and their what they're really capable of doing is not able to be shined through right now.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whoever you are, wherever you are. Zero Authority and Trajan is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems built on stacks, built on Bitcoin. Today we have a return guest, and since the last time we talked to you a couple of months ago, Jacob, and your hair's been on fire, brother. Holy smokes, you guys have been in build mode. You guys are not playing around. So we got a fan favorite of the community here who's building on stacks, Bitcoin, runes, BRC20, anything Bitcoin related. Hermetica is building. So Hermetica is launching a number of different types of products. And so today we are going to talk about the first Bitcoin backed yield bearing synthetic dollar protocol on runes and stacks. So that's been the big news. You guys have been dropping some alpha, dropping some major alpha on that, and obviously you guys have your derivatives and different products that you've already launched. I know with stuff that's going on in the ecosystem right now, your site isn't live to everyone right now, but it will be back up and running. There's some good information that you could read all about Hermetica. We'll pull it on the screen here as we're talking and as we go through a couple of things. But before we talk about all those amazing things, well, I'm sure we're going to talk about runes too, Jacob, and which runes you're bullish on here. And I'm pretty sure you're bullish on dog, like most of us, and maybe
Got some dog.
decentralize and a couple of others. You had I was jealous of your cigar you had there earlier. By the way, if
Got it right here.
there it is. Yeah, it looks like it has some good flavor. John Ennis, if you're watching this, special shout out to you. I know your cigar collection is pretty awesome. This is also a message for everyone who will be in Nashville. Me and Huddle will be there. I know Jacob and I were just talking about meeting up and doing something together. I know a lot of people in the stacks and Bitcoin communities will be there, the rootstock communities. Looking forward to seeing all of you guys catching up in person and having some one-on-one chats. I can't wait for that. Jacob, before we launch into all these things today, how are you, brother?
Good, brother. Always good if I chat with you. It's a pleasure. And yeah, it's there's a lot going on, obviously. So we gotta keep our head on a swivel. But yeah, it's a lot of good stuff going on as well. So happy to dive into it.
Absolutely. Like you said, stay SAFU out there. Stay safe, guys. Make sure you have multi-factor authentication on all your socials, on all apps that allow multi-factor authentication. Make sure, I just saw this tweet about a really sophisticated attack where people were posing as journalists and they were impersonating sites. I know this week somebody was impersonating GM Chung and reaching out to me to do some investments, and I was like, dude, you're not going to get me. You're not going to get me, brother. But good luck out there. But people are, the bad guys are out there. The markets are back. The bulls are back, baby.
Yeah, definitely back. I'm very bullish on the market. We can talk about that. I think that we have a good 6 months to a year, maybe even longer, of a massive bull market for us. Just getting
Absolutely.
started.
Green candles, baby.
That's right. Big ones.
Hey, Jacob. So the last time we talked, you guys had launched a couple of products here, uh, and obviously you guys have been in many spaces. You guys are you guys have been building for a while. I know you specifically have been around Bitcoin for a while now, so this isn't your first rodeo. But what you're building with Hermetica and everything I've seen so far, and just the integrity that you've been bringing, and just being able to really resonate within the community, it's just been amazing. And just to see these products that you guys are launching, man. You guys build fast and you guys are all about security. Just tell us about that journey as being a founder, building in Bitcoin. I don't think we talk about that a lot, right? It's hard. It's tough. It's not easy. You have to be patient.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, building on Bitcoin has historically been extremely difficult. I think it's rapidly changing now, but like just a year ago or 2 years ago, there was basically nobody building on Bitcoin, very little infrastructure, very little tooling, very little resources. There's still very little actually documentation and resources to build on actual Bitcoin. I think Stacks is a little bit different because you have the foundation, you have Hero, you have other entities that really support the development of the apps. But yeah, it's generally difficult, but it's very fulfilling because it's Bitcoin, right? We all love Bitcoin, and building on the most secure, hardest asset in the world is just fulfilling in itself. You have to come with a lot of patience, as you said, because block times sometimes as a developer, you need to test things out on your app, you need to deploy contracts, and then you're waiting, just sitting staring at your screen for like 20-30 minutes just to get one confirmation. It gets old. We're like when Nakamoto, but we'll get there soon enough. That's also the opportunity, right?
Yeah, I mean, even for the bad guys right now, when you attack Stacks, you have to wait for those 10-minute block times.
Yeah, it slows everything down. That's right.
When Nakamoto's here, we're going to look back in the old days and say, "Oh man, remember those 10-minute block confirmation times?"
Yeah, I won't miss him. I definitely won't miss him.
Are you guys you guys have been paying attention to runes too, and it sounds like you're
Yes.
building the next DeFi products on runes too.
Yes.
I've been obviously I bought some runes and I'm bullish on runes BRC20 on ordinals. Has it been wild just to see the release of runes and how much attention it's been gathering and just the
Yeah.
buzz?
Yeah, I think that the hype going into the halving and the runes launch was pretty significant. I think actually was probably a little bit too much. It was like super hyped, and then we've seen a drop off over the last month or so. I think it's very healthy for like that hype to die down, so actually we can build some stuff that actually is utility. There's a lot of meme coins on runes, which I think is great. I love meme coins. They're fun, and then I think I know of a bunch of teams, ours included, that are actually building real utility into the protocol, and that's what we're really excited about.
You don't have to tell me or anyone here, but are you holding a couple of runes?
Yes, sir. I had a bunch of pre-runes. Obviously got Dog, got Arsec, got the Pops,
Yeah.
got Uncommon Goods. I minted it in the second block. I minted
Nice.
Uncommon Goods just for the culture.
Yep.
And a bunch of others that I'm not even keeping track, to be honest. I get like
Yeah.
airdrops every couple days.
Yeah. I think I got some
Satoshi. Yeah, I got
Nakamoto.
Satoshi.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course. Gotta hold some Satoshi in your wallet.
Gotta hold Satoshi, man. Gotta hold those sats.
Totally.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been absolute bonkers, man. I know we're going to talk about the synthetic dollar, but before we get there, tell us about this period just building on Stacks and how you found a lot of people in the community and just kind of operating and cooperating together. Obviously, it's a DeFi app. It's it's general category DeFi app, but what you guys do is really specific. So there's some differences, but just talk about the partnerships in Stacks and even broader Bitcoin too, if you want to just broaden it out too as well.
Yeah.
And if you're
I think
a new founder, a message for new founders, if you're looking to build, what would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to answer your first question, I think the Stacks and Bitcoin DeFi founder community is very tight knit. There's not crazy amounts of live protocols on Stacks or Bitcoin, and so everybody knows each other, all like each other, support each other, work together, collaborate on different products. Like we've launched a product with STX, with the Stacking DAO protocol, which is really cool, I think, and friends with a lot of the founders in the space, and there's a lot of good vibes. What I would say to somebody coming new into the space is, you're very welcome, and like there's a lot of opportunities to get involved. What I would say is focus on building, right? Focus on really shipping something, get an idea, and provide value by releasing code and actually bringing something to market, and that will get attention very quickly, because there's really still a pretty wide open space to provide new protocols, new ideas to the market, and also reach out to folks. My DMs are open. Reach out on Telegram, even though I'm very suspicious about Telegram messages, I have to say. At this point, it's probably not the best place to reach out. But yeah, just like get into people's DMs and start chatting and bouncing off ideas, because we're all open to it, and happy to welcome new participants and ideas.
And I know for me personally, a lot of my chats were open, and we just recently this week on our Zero Authority Trajan Discord, we kind of shut it down as you could see the announcements, but just wanted to reduce the risk on chats and stuff. And obviously Telegram, we're on there. You can find me in Discord. You could find me as well. I know some people had reached out and wanted me to connect them to you, Jacob. So I'm sure a lot of your chats are closed too. And so I always say tweet at Zero Authority Trajan, tweet at Hermetica. If you need us to do some intros to Jacob, we're happy, because those intros that we did and that you guys facilitated, man, that's just been awesome to see you guys just taking it and partnerships just organically being created.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to chat with people. I obviously screen my DMs, but they're open. You can message me, and I'll read them if they're not completely crazy. So
if they're not sending you a message, send me your funds, and I'll send you a 1,000,000% APY back, right?
yeah, or like the usual scam is like, I'm a reporter for this magazine, and I want to interview you, and please click this link.
Yeah,
I get that all the
too
time.
obvious now. Like, look, do not click on any Zoom links or anything like that, guys. Just do not.
Yeah, that's good
Hey,
advice.
tell us about the big announcement, Jacob. You guys are launching a synthetic dollar. Now, a lot of people have had flashbacks to Terra Luna and what the synthetic dollar was. I know you and I were laughing right before going live here, but just tell us what it is, and tell us why it's completely different and does not give off any Ponzi-nomics or any type of Ponzi scheme vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, and so obviously Terra Luna was left a lot of scar tissue in the community. Went from like over $100 billion to zero in like a couple of weeks. So I understand that people have like a reaction that is maybe a little critical. I think that's good. You should always be critical, especially to new protocols and ideas.
Right.
But what we're building is, as you said, fundamentally completely different from Luna. Luna created a quote unquote stable coin that was backed by its own governance token, and there was like a burning and minting depending on the supply dynamics. It's what is called an algorithmic stable coin. What we're building is a completely different design, and it is fully backed by Bitcoin from day one, meaning that every synthetic dollar, every USDH that is represented on chain is actually backed by $1 worth of Bitcoin in our protocol. So there is no minting or redeeming based on supply and demand. It's just $1 worth of Bitcoin goes in, 1 USDH is represented on chain. So at any point, that USDH can also be redeemed for $1 worth of Bitcoin. So you can think of USDH as $1 worth of Satoshis. That's really it. How it works is that we take the Bitcoin and we short a futures contract against it to lock in the dollar value. So you can think of it, you long Bitcoin and you short the same amount on the futures market, and that creates what is called a delta neutral position. It's basically locking in the dollar value, and then we issue. Yeah, there you go. That's the right images for it. We lock in the dollar value and we issue USDH against that dollar value. The cool thing, the interesting part, I mean, this by itself is already interesting, but there's another really interesting element, which is that going short the futures is a cash flow positive trade, meaning that people that want to go long Bitcoin, and there's a lot of people that want to go long Bitcoin, especially in a bull market, pay for that privilege and they pay that in the form of funding rate. That's how it's done in the crypto markets in perpetual futures. And that funding rate can be very significant. On an annualized basis, is around 12% annualized on average over the last 4.5 years. But it can go up to 25%. That's where those up to 25% yield comes from. In 2021, we saw it at 26 annualized. In bear market, obviously, there's less demand for long leverage, and therefore that yield fluctuates down and goes to like 3-4% in the bear market. But people that hold USDH can access this yield by staking the USDH and receiving a liquid staking token SUSDH, the staked version of it. And that staked USDH accrues value from the funding rate over time. So it goes up in value, similar to a staked ETH or a staked stacks, that just, the exchange rate goes up, and you can then exchange that SUSDH for more USDH later. So let's say you come with 1,000 USDH, you stake it, and after a year, you would have 1,250 if it's 25%. That's the system.
Yeah.
We're launching.
And when is it going to be live and accessible to the public? I think you guys are doing some test cases now, right?
Yeah. So we are going to audit next week. It's a very involved auditing process for the smart contracts for stacks. And we're also at the same time building out the Runes infrastructure. So we will be able to launch it on Runes as well as on stacks natively. So you'll have two different protocols, probably right quickly, one after the other. The target launch date is the end of June, so in roughly a month. Obviously depends on how the audits go and what we find in those processes. But very imminently, you will be able to hold dollars in your Bitcoin wallet, in your Stacks wallet. And those dollars, just to reiterate, those dollars are still Bitcoin, right? That's the beauty of it. It's actually Bitcoin. It's $1 worth of Bitcoin. That's how you can think of it.
And will that be native Bitcoin, Jacob?
Yes, that will be native Bitcoin. Now, to be like, if you go maybe to the security section of it, to be like fully transparent, this is like a hybrid DeFi, CeFi protocol, in that the Bitcoin that we have in the protocol are held in an institutional grade custodian. We work with a number of them. We'll make them public when we actually go live. But we work with the market leading institutional custodians. They're really the best of the best. They have never lost any customer funds ever, just to put that into perspective. It's like the most secure custodians there are. And the interesting part is that they allow us to do what is called off-exchange settlement. And that is, we hold Bitcoin in a custody account and are able to trade on exchanges like Binance, Bybit, Deribit, etc., the big derivatives exchanges. But we are not holding the Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So if one of those exchanges goes bust, our Bitcoin are not part of any bankruptcy claims. They will be bankruptcy remote. They're held in a separate trust outside of the custody of the actual exchange. So that's how we are able to reduce the counterparty risk significantly.
Now, you said a lot of things that are important, right? And just want to unpack all of that stuff, because man, there's just a lot of questions that people have, right? So, and look, I personally believe as crypto becomes more mature and Web3 becomes more mature, the institutional grade security firms and institutional firms that are traders and they use these services, it's obviously just going to be kind of obfuscated, and you probably won't know, but you will want to know, are you using the best security protocols? Are you using the best security mechanisms that you could possibly use? And then the second thing, which is one of the questions I was going to ask you that you already addressed, if there's some type of bankruptcy, because it's not I'm not far enough removed from 2022.
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen from
Three Arrows, FTX, right? It was a domino.
Yep.
Celsius, BlockFi, you name them, they all
Yep.
went under, right? Just talk about those two things first, like using institutional grade security, and then number two, like if there was any type of bankruptcy proceedings, that you don't need to, wait like Mount Gox and shit for your coins. You don't have to wait 15 years later to get your Bitcoin. That will be settled to USD, so you won't even get the upside ROI anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are great points. And it's really fascinating because if you look at DeFi, right, DeFi is obviously super innovative, amazing technology. I'm a big fan of it, but it's certainly been a bumpy ride over the last 4 or 5 years since it existed. I think the total of exploit is around $7 billion have been stolen out of smart contracts. And if you contrast that with custodians, institutional custodians, like the top players, the pros, they have never lost any customer funds. So you contrast those two, there's a very significant difference. Now, when it comes to bankruptcy, remote trusts, and setups, how it works is essentially these custodians allow you to, they create a trust, like a separate legal entity, right? A trust, and that holds the assets in its own possession, but is at the same time, and that's the beauty of it, able to be mirrored. That's the terminologies they use. It basically becomes available on exchanges to trade as collateral. So you can use this to open trades, but it's not on the exchange. It's outside of the exchange's balance sheet. So if the exchange would go bust, those assets are not in their jurisdiction and will not be part of any bankruptcy claims. They're still in the trust. Interestingly, on top of that is that even if the custodian has problems, if they have problem with any other customer or they get hacked, then the funds that we hold with them are even not on their balance sheet. So it's on nobody's balance sheet. It can't be part of any bankruptcy proceeding. Now, there's obviously the risk of the P&L that is happening on the exchange. So if you have a trade open, we hedge, say we have 100 Bitcoin, we hedge it, right? The price goes down. We now have actually a profit on the exchange. If the exchange would go bankrupt, that profit might not be honored, but these custodians allow us to settle on a daily basis. So every day, the exchange sends the P&L to the custodians or vice versa. And so if the exchange would go bust, we would be on the hook for 1 day worth of P&L, which is very, very manageable.
Talk to us about, so let's just do it from a user perspective, right? I'm a user. Maybe you have some whales that are interested in a product like this. Tell us the first, because some questions we get is, well, how's it different from like USDA on Arcadico, right? There's obviously a difference, and then that difference, USDH versus USDA, right? There's a difference, and then the other thing too is, if you're using this product, just like walk us through like how someone would use it, like is it on stacks or is it on runes, and just kind of like the differences there.
Yeah, great question. So how is it different to a USDA or other stable coins? So there's a USDA is an over collateralized stable coin. I'm personally, I'm a fan of Arcadico and the guys that are building it there. It's a very cool way of doing a stable coin, but there's specific trade-offs. A over collateralized stable coin, you have to put, as the word says, over collateral. So you have to put more Bitcoin value into the protocol to get a lower amount of stable coin. So if you have $1,000 worth of stable coin, you put that in, you can maybe mint 50 or 500 or $600 worth of that stable coin. That's where the over collateralized comes from. Mm-hmm. So it's not as efficient in that you can't represent all the value on chain in a stable coin. The other element is that you have to manage your liquidation levels, right? You have to actually make sure that the margin is met. Like the liquidation ratio here is, for example, 140 on STXTX. So you have to always have enough of your Bitcoin or STX in the vault in order not to get liquidated, right? And that is a user experience that I think is very good in a bull market, because you don't have to worry about it too much. But in a bear market or in very volatile markets where the price moves around a lot, it can get very stressful. I've been there. I mean, I've used this product myself, and so that is another element that is maybe a little bit challenging at times. And then on top of that, what our protocol does is we use futures to lock in the dollar value, which allows us to represent almost all the value of the Bitcoin on chain. So if $1,000 goes into our protocol, we'll be able to mint stablecoin against that at an almost 1-to-1 ratio. Obviously, there's some fees and trading fees related things that happen there and some slippage. but might be able to mint like $990 against it. And since we're fully hedged, we don't have to manage a liquidation risk. There's no leverage in the system, right? Even though we're using futures, there's no leverage in the system. Maybe that's a little bit like difficult to understand, because futures are usually used to create leverage, but we don't use futures to create leverage. We actually use futures to take away the leverage, to take away the delta exposure, how you would say, as a trader.
And,
so there's no,
for people who aren't traders, using leverages, you could borrow some collateral, right? And you post that collateral, or there's some type of additional collateral you're using, right?
Yeah, so we don't use any leverage in our protocol, but how you would use leverage is you can either borrow an asset and then you have leverage on that asset, or you can use futures contracts. Futures contract gives you inherent leverage because you can hold a smaller amount of margin. You can hold $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and you can open a position that is worth $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. So now you have a 10x leverage. But if the price moves 10% against you, all your margin is used up and you get liquidated. Right, that's another way to get leverage. We use futures to hedge. So we take out all the price exposure of the Bitcoin. That's how you can think of it. It's Bitcoin sanitized by its price exposure, and therefore we have the ability to offer a much higher amount of of dollars for that Bitcoin. The other important element that we're really excited about is number two, like the staking and the yield element of it. In an over collateralized system, you actually have to pay to borrow, right? You actually have to pay interest. Whereas in our system, you can get paid for holding a stable coin, right? So you can take that stable coin, stake it, and then you get a proportion of the funding rate that comes in from the futures short position paid out to you. And that can be very significant. As I mentioned, up to 25%. It's 12% annualized. So those are the differences. There's place and time for both, in our opinion. Your second question was, how can people use this? There's really two different ways to participate in the protocol, and there might be people that are interested in either one. One is the minting and redeeming function in our protocol is only available to approved participants. We have to comply with specific regulations because we're trading on centralized exchanges. So only KYC, KYB participants can actually mint and redeem the stablecoin by depositing Bitcoin or withdrawing Bitcoin out of the protocol. But anybody, the general public, any user is able to buy the stablecoin on the open market. It will be available through the swaps in the ecosystem. We have Bitflow, we have Velar, and others. So you're able to buy the stablecoin, hold it, and then if you want to access the yield, you can come and stake it, and then you will get SUSDH. And if you have SUSDH in your wallet, you're essentially just earning the yield as time progresses. And then you can obviously use SUSDH or USDH across the ecosystem. We're planning a number of integrations with, for example, lending markets, also lending markets on Runes. Very close to the Liquidium team over there. They're doing some amazing work with ordinal lending and soon Rune lending. So there's a world where you're able to borrow, for example, USDH against your Runes or your ordinals.
That's amazing. You're dropping some more alpha here, Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things too that I've been seeing a lot, and I'm huge fans of the guys over at Liquidium, Robin and those guys. Man, they really put their head down, and they did grind through the bear market. I remember talking to them when we were close to coming out of the bear, and they were just always bullish on building on stacks and runes. Well, not runes at the time, but just ordinals. They pivoted really fast to ordinals, and I give them a lot of credit. I don't know if a lot of people know, but they had all the smart contracts ready and everything for stacks, and I'm sure they probably will have a product if it's not launched. But man, that's been amazing liquidity unlock for the whole ordinals market.
100%. Yeah, I've actually been involved with Liquidium from very early days. I've been an advisor to them since really almost the first months, And yeah, Robin, Pete, and Julian, the whole team there is just doing fantastic work and bringing real use cases to ordinals and runes and just pushing the envelope on what is possible. Kudos to them.
Yeah, great protocol, and man, I know they went through the Bitcoin Startup Lab. So if you guys are watching this and you're interested in having an idea, learning more how you can build around that idea, Albert does a phenomenal job at the Bitcoin Startup Lab, and then there's the Bitcoin Frontier. If you're a little more advanced and further along, and that's ran by Kyle, Trevor Owens, and I know Jacob is there too. So Jake is there, and you'll probably see a lot of his posts. Awesome. So it sounds like there's going to be the ecosystem. Look, more stable coins are needed, right? Uh, I see this as another puzzle piece in the whole DeFi and unlocking liquidity. So I think USDA with Arcadico, that's great. What Alex is doing, what Valar's doing, what you guys are doing at Hermetica, it's really a part of the fabric of the ecosystem for Bitcoin layer twos. So that's awesome, man. Uh, talk to us about, like, if I'm a user, will I have like the options of I can mint this or buy some on the Runes protocol, or I can buy some on Stacks, and I'm sure there should be a bridge at some point, maybe just to swap it back and forth. Maybe nothing sophisticated. You don't want to overcomplicate it, but just something simple to swap my Runes USDH back to Stacks.
Yeah, so we'll be natively issuing on Runes as well as on Stacks. So the token will live on both protocols natively. There's no bridging needed or anything else. As a user, you'll be able to choose whichever one you prefer, right? Some people really like Stacks, some people really like Runes, and we'll be there for both of them. Now, when it comes to bridging, we're talking to a number of bridges that will allow you to take that stablecoin and move it across the different protocols, potentially also to other L2s. But yeah, step by step, I think first we have to go live on the protocols, then we can talk about bridging it from one to the other and doing some cool stuff. What we're really excited about is actually being able to use the stablecoin and the yield-bearing instrument across the DeFi ecosystem on Stacks and on the Runes protocol as well. So you'll be able to borrow against or borrow stablecoin, put it into protocols like Zest and use it as collateral, and many more use cases to come, hopefully.
Tell us how it could potentially work at Zest. So I know Zest was starting, I think they kind of pivoted, because I know originally they were going to do Bitcoin backed lending for institutions, and now they kind of pivoted into they're going to be the Aave on Bitcoin L2s. Is it going to, I don't, I'm not asking you to tell us about Zest, but just give us some like insight into like what would you be able to do with your USDH on Zest and with the lending.
Yeah, obviously that's dependent on the integration there with the protocol, but
Yeah.
it's a SIP10 token, so you like on Zest you're able to deposit tokens and then borrow against those tokens depending on the protocols, demand, supply and demand functions that happen at the moment. So the really interesting one, and this is maybe step 2 or 3, the interesting one that I am excited about is that you could have a yield bearing instrument like SUSDH, and you could deposit that into a protocol like Zest and use it as collateral to then borrow against it. So you basically have an asset that earns yield, and at the same time you can borrow against it, and maybe that yield differential is actually positive. So you make like whatever 15% on your SUSDH and you borrow against it and you only pay 10%, so you actually still making 5%, but you also get some leverage and some utility out of it. So there's really cool like composability that you can envision as these protocols mature and as our token becomes to market that can plug into the different use cases.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's amazing. That's amazing too. How would it work with lending for ordinals? Would you Could you put up your ordinal and lends get some USDH as for lending out your ordinal? Could it work like that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of ways that you could do it. You can right now, for example, on Liquidium, you deposit a ordinal, or you create a DLC, you put your ordinal into the DLC, and then somebody lends you Bitcoin against that, right? And you basically get Bitcoin value out of your ordinal. You could envision the same flow, but instead of Bitcoin, it is USDH or a stable coin. So you put your ordinal in, and then you get stable coin back. So you're borrowing stable coin instead of Bitcoin. The other interesting one that obviously is a huge market and demand for is just Bitcoin, and then like depositing Bitcoin and borrowing a stable coin against it. So a Bitcoin collateralized loan. Now, and then on top of that, obviously as Rune's ecosystem matures right now, there's some really cool tokens. We just talked about it at the beginning of the chat, but there probably be some even more mature tokens in the future. I know that Liquidium, for example, is launching their token as a Runes token. BFF is coming out as a Runes token. So you can see a world where you can have those Runes tokens be collateral, and you can borrow a stablecoin against that on the Runes protocol.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I wasn't. What have you heard about going from Runes to BRC20 to Stacks? Is BRC20 still a big deal right now, or is it all about Runes?
I personally think that BRC20 is quite the clunky protocol. It's not very efficient and takes a lot of UTXO space and fees to interact with. So I think I think it was a cool idea, and it was definitely had its moment. I think that it's still around, obviously, and it will stay around. But I think Runes is a more lightweight, more elegant design, and has a lot of mind share right now, and that's what we're focused on.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What about Rootstock or BitVM? Are there what are some of the conversations around Bitcoin on DeFi and Rootstock or BitVM? Is it still kind of just too new, or is it too nascent right now to make a decision about?
Yeah, I think Rootstock has its own ecosystem. I think it's been around for a very long time in the grand scheme of things, and so it is. I think there's some cool projects and a cool protocol. We're personally not focused on Rootstock, but it's very valid in our eyes. BitVM is more a foundational technology. That's how I see it. It might enable some interesting L2s. It's basically like a key infrastructure piece that might unlock some roll up like L2s, but that's still TBD from what I hear and what I read and the people I talk to. There's still a lot of development work that needs to be done. There's some key trade-offs that need to be figured out on the BitVM side in order to like actually build this tech out. But it's a really cool paper. It's a really cool invention and a really interesting way to basically have fraud proofs on Bitcoin without having to change Bitcoin at all. No soft forks needed. There's obviously all the conversation about OpCat and covenants and those kind of technologies on Bitcoin, which I think is a really cool way to do it and would allow us to unlock a lot of capabilities on Bitcoin. But as we know, it's gonna, if it works, even if it works, right? There's an if it works, it's gonna take probably years for that to come online. So we're just focused on what we can do right now. Runes is a very simple protocol. We can build on it today. Obviously still not easy to do that, but it is there. And then Stacks is functional and is a thriving ecosystem, and we're really passionate about building there as well.
If let's say OpCat becomes more usable and highly adopted across Bitcoin, what does that allow for L2s? What does it allow? Because I'm not too familiar on it. I know I read things here and there, and I'm still not exactly sure. Does that mean that we can have better L2s with just more tight integration, or does that mean we can reduce the transaction fees on Bitcoin?
Yeah. So OpCat it's an opcode that actually was originally in Bitcoin in the first release from Satoshi, but was taken out at some point because of security concerns.
Did
and not
Satoshi recommend deprecating it, or was it just
think
someone
so.
else? Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on the exact history on it, but I think it was taken out at some point. It is just a concatenation, right? It's a string concatenation. That's where cat comes from. It's not anything crazy. It's a it's a functionality that is present in every or most. I don't want to say absolute, but most programming languages in the world. So it's just one more expression that can be done through Bitcoin script. What will it allow? I'm not a Bitcoin core dev, right? I'm not like super deep into that world, just because also there's so much time in a day.
Yeah.
But it will allow some interesting use cases to enhance DLCs, as I understand it, or covenants. So it will allow us to do more secure, more trustless ways of locking Bitcoin up and ensuring that it can only get paid out to one specific address, for example, which is pretty challenging or not possible right now. And then, from what I understand, it would allow rollups to happen. Like, it would allow CK proofs on Bitcoin, so you would be able to actually verify rollups from an L2 on Bitcoin L1, which then opens up the design space for really quote unquote full L2s, like actual L2s that can you can always
You're solving the Bitcoin rights problem, right? Which is what Stacks is doing with the trust minimized bridge for SBTC.
yeah, and Stacks could become one of those rollups, right? Like, and I think that's part of the roadmap for Stacks. Is Stacks takes a very pragmatic approach and says we're building something that works today, and make it really a good user experience, build a great community around it, and bring DeFi apps and other apps to the ecosystem. But if we have more technologies at our disposal, everybody will be able to use it, including Stacks, and there might be some upgrade that then makes Stacks a roll up or more akin to a roll up and uses Opcat or other technologies. But yeah, it will be really, really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Let's get it done.
LFG, let's fucking go. Let's get it done. Yeah. Hey, Jacob, this has been awesome, man. Again, huge congratulations to you guys. I know you guys have some other announcements coming out. I know you guys have been busy on the fundraise side and doing all those meetings. I know you guys have been working with a lot of partners, a lot of protocols. There's never enough time in the day, but you made time to shoot the shit with us today, and it's always appreciated, brother. I can't wait to see you, some other people in Nashville. We definitely will have to have you back on in another couple of months, and then once USDH is churning out and people are using it, would love to come just talk about how people are using it. And just kind of like the full implementation with lending, borrowing, ordinals, runes. That's amazing, man. That you guys are going to use runes right away, because I thought you guys would be maybe next year planning for it, and you guys are just moving full steam ahead. That's amazing, man.
Yeah, no sleep, and yeah, man, always a pleasure to hang out and chat, and looking forward to some cigars in Nashville and some more good chats down the road. Yeah, follow us on Twitter. Come check us out on our website, Hermetica FI. Sign up to the waiting list if you're really excited about what we're building and want to be part or want to be one of the first to get access. Sign up to our waiting list. Those are the people that will get access. It's on our website. Just put in your email and that's it. You're ready to go. We're sending out weekly newsletters that actually have some really solid alpha in them. Like, we have a very talented trader that writes insights and we keep everybody up to date on what we're building in the ecosystem. So yeah, that's if you really want to be part of the Hermetica community, plug in your email, come into our Discord, and there's a lot more to come. And yeah, man, thank you, Zero, for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
That's awesome. Again, go to hermetica.fi, find Jacob on his Twitter. They're on Telegram. I know you guys are in many Discords as well. Does Hermetica have Discord as well?
Yes. Yep.
Find them there, talk to them, reach out, build more partnerships. This is amazing, man. Thanks so much for coming on, Jacob. Really appreciate your time today, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. Talk soon.
You have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.